welcome back to Goodnight Stories. My name is Lyra, and I will be your guide into whatever book we decide to read tonight. From young readers to young adult novels, my hope is to give you a comfortable space to listen to a story. So, sit back, relax, grab a cup of tea. Tonight we jump into Erin Hunter's Moonrise. The second book in the New Prophecy series of Warrior Cats. Prologue. One by one, the cats crept into the cave. Their fur was streaked with mud, and their eyes stretched wide with fear, reflecting the cold moonlight that filtered through a crack in the roof. They crouched low, with their bellies close to the ground, their gazes flickering from side to side, as if they expected to see danger lurking in the shadows. The glimmer of moonlight was caught in pools of water on the cave floor. It lit up a forest of pointed stones, some rising from the ground and others hanging from the cave roof. Some of the stones joined in the middle to form slender trees of gleaming white rock. Wind gusted through them, ruffling the cat's fur. The air smelled damp and clean, and was filled with the distant roar of falling water. The cat stepped out from behind one of the pointed stones. He was long-bodied, with lean, muscular limbs, and his pelt was completely covered in mud that had dried into spikes, so that he looked like a cat carved in stone. "Welcome," he meowed in a rasping voice. "Moonlight lies on the water. It is time for a telling, according to the laws of the tribe of endless hunting." One of the cats crept forward, dipping his head to the mud-covered cat. "Stone Teller, have you had a sign? Has the tribe of endless hunting spoken to you?" Another cat spoke from behind him. "Is there hope at last?" Stone Teller bowed his head. "I have seen the words of the tribe of endless hunting and the pattern of moonlight on the rock. In the shadows cast by the stones, in the sound of raindrops as they fall from the roof." He paused, letting his gaze sweep over the cats around him. "Yes," he went on, "they have told me there is hope." A faint murmur, like the rustle of leaves in the wind, passed through the group of cats. Their eyes seemed to grow brighter, and their ears pricked. The one who had come forward first mewed hesitantly. "Then you know what will rid us of this dreadful danger?" "Yes, Crag," Stone Teller replied. "The tribe of endless hunting has promised me that a cat will come, a silver cat, not from this tribe, who will rid us of Sharptooth once and for all." There was a pause then. "Are there other cats not in the tribe of rushing water?" A voice asked from the back of the group. "There must be," another cat replied. "I have heard tell of strangers," meowed Crag, "though we've seen none here in our lifetimes. But when will the silver cat come?" he added desperately, and the other mews rose from all around him. "Yes, when? Is it really true?" Stone Teller signaled for silence with a twitch of his tail. "Yes, it is true," he meowed. "The tribe of endless hunting has never lied to us. I have seen the sheen of his silver fur myself in a moonlit pool." "But when?" Crag persisted. "The tribe of endless hunting has not shown that to me," Stone Teller replied. "I do not know when the silver cat will come, or from where, but we will know when it happens." He raised his head toward the cave roof, and his eyes shone like two tiny moons. "Until then, cats of my tribe, we can only wait." Chapter 1. Stormfur opened his eyes. blinking away sleep, and struggled to remember where he was. Instead of his nest of reeds in the RiverClan camp, he was lying curled in dry, crunchy bracken. Above his head was the earth roof of a cave, crisscrossed with tangled roots. He could hear a rhythmic roaring sound faintly in the distance. At first it puzzled him, then he remembered how close they were to the sun-drowned water, washing endlessly onto the edge of the land. He flinched as a vision burst into his mind of how he and Brambleclaw had struggled in the water for their lives. He spat, still tasting the salty tang at the back of his throat. At home in RiverClan, he was used to water. He was the only His was the only clan that could swim comfortably in the river that ran through the forest. But not this surging, salty, pushing and pulling water, too strong even for a RiverClan cat to swim in safely. Other memories came rushing back. StarClan had sent cats from each of the 4 clans on a long, dangerous journey to hear what Midnight had to tell them. They had fought their way across unknown country through 2-leg nests, facing attacks from dogs and rats to make the last incredible discovery that Midnight was a badger. Stormfur felt ice creeping along his limbs as he recalled Midnight's dreadful message. 2-legs were destroying the forest to make a new thunderpath. All the clans would have to leave, and it was the task of StarClan's chosen cats to warn them and lead them to a new home. Stormfur sat up and looked around the cave. Faint light filtered down the tunnel that led out onto the cliff top, along with a gentle current of fresh air that carried the scent of salt water. Midnight, the badger, was nowhere to be seen. Close beside Stormfur, his sister, Feathertail, was sleeping. Her tail curled over her nose. Just beyond her was Tawnypelt, the fierce ShadowClan warrior. Stormfur was relieved to see that she was resting quietly, as if the rat bite she had suffered in the 2-leg place was troubling her less. Midnight's store of herbs had yielded it something to soothe the infection and help her sleep. On the opposite side of the cave, a little way apart, was the WindClan apprentice Crowpaw, his dark gray pelt barely visible among the fronds of bracken. Nearest the cave entrance, Tawnypelt's brother, Brambleclaw, was stretched out beside Squirrelpaw, who slept in a tight ball. Stormfur felt a stab of jealousy at the sight of the 2 ThunderClan cats close together, and tried to push it away. He had no right to admire Squirrelpaw and her courage and bright optimism, as much as he did when they came from different clans. Brambleclaw would make her a much better mate. Stormfur knew that he ought to rouse his companions so that they could begin their long journey back to the forest. Yet he was strangely reluctant. Let them sleep a little longer, he thought. We'll need all our strength for what lies ahead. Shaking scraps of bracken from his pelt, he picked his way across the sandy floor of the cave and out through the tunnel. A stiff breeze ruffled his fur as he emerged onto the springy grass. He was dry at last after his near drowning the night before, and sleep had refreshed him. He stood gazing round him. Just ahead was the edge of the cliff, and beyond it lay an endless stretch of shimmering water, reflecting the pale light of dawn. Stormfur opened his jaws to drink in the air and catch the scent of prey. Instead, his senses were flooded by a strong reek of badger. He caught sight of Midnight sitting on the highest point of the cliff, her small, bright eyes fixed on the fading stars. In the sky behind her, on the far side of the moorland, a strip of creamy light showed where the sun would rise. Stormfur padded over, dipping his head respectfully before sitting beside her. "Good morning, Grey Warrior," Midnight's voice rumbled in welcome. "Sleep you have enough?" "Yes, thanks, Midnight." Stormfur still found it strange to be exchanging friendly greetings with her, when badgers had always been deadly enemies of the warrior clans. Yet Midnight was no ordinary badger. She seemed closer to StarClan than any warrior, except perhaps the medicine cats. She had traveled far and somehow found the wisdom to foretell the future. Stormfur gave her a sidelong glance, to see her eyes still fixed on the remaining stars in the dawn sky. "Can you really read signs there from StarClan?" he asked curiously, half hoping that her terrible predictions from the night before would vanish in the light of morning. Much is to be read everywhere, the badger replied. In stars, in running water, in flash of light on waves. Whole world speaks if ears are open to listen. It must be death, then. Stormfur meowed. The future seems dark to me. Not so, Grey Warrior. Rest midnight. See? She pointed with her snout across the sun-drowned water to where a single warrior of StarClan still shone brightly just above the horizon. StarClan has seen our meeting. Pleased they are, and help they will give in dark days coming. Stormfur gazed up at the brilliant point of light and let out a faint sigh. He was no medicine cat, accustomed to sharing tongues with their warrior ancestors. His task was to offer his strength and skill in the service of his clan, and now, it seemed, of all the forest cats, Midnight had made it clear that each and every clan would be destroyed if they could not ignore the ancient boundaries and work together for once. Midnight, when we go home, his question was never finished. A yowl interrupted him, and he turned to see Squirrelpaw burst out of the tunnel that led down into the badger's set. She stood in the entrance, her dark ginger fur fluffed up and her ears pricked. I'm starving, she announced. Where's the prey around here? Budge up and let the rest of us out, Crowpaw's irritable voice sounded behind her. Then we might be able to tell you. Squirrelpaw bounced forward a few paces, and the Wind Clan apprentice emerged, followed closely by Feathertail. She stretched with pleasure in the sunlight. Stormfur got up and bounded over the tough moorland grass so he could touch noses with his sister. He had not been one of the StarClan's original chosen cats, but he had insisted on coming on the journey to protect Feathertail. With their mother dead and their father living in a different clan, the two cats were much closer than ordinary siblings. Midnight lumbered after him and nodded a greeting to the cats. Tawny Pelt's much better this morning, Feathertail reported. She says her shoulder hardly hurts at all. To Midnight, she added, that burdock root you gave her really helped. Roots is good, the badger rumbled. Now injured warrior travel well. As she spoke, Tawny Pelt herself appeared from the tunnel. Stormfur was relieved to see that she looked stronger after her long sleep, and was scarcely limping at all. Following Tawny Pelt, her brother, Brambleclaw, pushed his way out of the tunnel and stood blinking in the growing light. The sun's nearly up, he meowed. It's time we were on our way. But we have to eat first, Squirrelpaw wailed. My belly is growling louder than a monster on the thunder path. I could eat a fox, fur and all. Stormfur had to agree with her. Hunger clawed at his own belly, and he knew that without food they would not be able to face the long and exhausting journey back to the forest. Yet he shared Brambleclaw's urgency. How would they feel if they delayed too long, and then discovered cats had died because of it? A look of exasperation flitted over Brambleclaw's face. His voice was firm as he replied, We'll pick up some prey as we go, and once we get back to the woods where we made camp, we'll have a proper hunt. Bossy furball, Squirrelpaw muttered. Brambleclaw's right, Tawny Pelt meowed. Who knows what's happening at home? There's no time to waste. A murmur of agreement rose from the other cats. Even Crowpaw, who usually challenged Brambleclaw's decisions even more than Squirrelpaw, had nothing to say. With a slight shock, Stormfur realized that their long journey and the threat to all of their clans had changed them from a group of squabbling rivals to a unified force with a single purpose, to save their clanmates in the warrior code that had protected them for so long. A warm feeling of belonging swept over Stormfur. His loyalty towards RiverClan was complicated, knowing how their half-clan heritage made other warriors suspicious of him and Feathertail. But here he knew he had found friends who judged him without thinking about clan differences all the time. Brambleclaw paced forward until he stood in front of Midnight. The thanks of all the clans go with you, he mewed. Midnight grunted. Time is not yet for farewell. I come with you as far as woods. Make sure you know right path. Without waiting for the cats to agree to thank her, she lumbered off across the moor. Ahead of her, the sky had become too bright to look at as the sun began to edge its way above the horizon. Stormfur blinked gratefully at the yellow light, and the setting sun had guided them on their journey to find the sun-drowned place. Now the rising sun would guide them home. The four chosen cats, along with Stormfur and Squirrelpaw, who had come with Brambleclaw after an argument with her father, Firestar, had set out from the forest blindly, following a half-understood prophecy from StarClan. Now that they had discovered what the prophecy meant, it was easier to decide what to do next, but at the same time it was terrifying to know just how much danger their clans were in. "Well, what are we waiting for?" Squirrelpaw asked, dashing off to overtake Midnight. Her clanmate Brambleclaw followed more slowly, looking deep in thought, as if he were imagining all the difficulties they would have to face on their way back to the forest. At his side, Tawny Pelt seemed refreshed from her night's rest, and even though she was still limping, her eyes shone nothing but determination to make the long journey home. Feathertail trotted with her tail up, clearly enjoying the bright morning, while Crowpaw loped along beside her, keeping his ears pricked and his muscles tense, as if he were already anticipating trouble. Stormfur, bringing up the rear, breathed a swift prayer to StarClan. "Guide our paws and bring us all safely home." As the sun climbed higher and the sky became a deep, clear blue, dotted with fluffy scraps of cloud, the weather was warm and kind for so late in leaf-fall. A breeze swept over the grass, and Stormfur's mouth watered as he caught the scent of rabbit. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a white tail bobbing as the rabbit vanished over the crest of a gentle slope. Instantly, Crowpaw darted after it. "Wait, where are you going?" Brambleclaw called after him, but the WindClan apprentice was gone. The tabby warrior's tail lashed irritably. "Does he ever listen?" "He won't be long," Feathertail soothed him. "You could hardly expect him to ignore a rabbit when it pops up right in front of our noses." Brambleclaw's only reply was another swish of his tail. "I'll fetch him back," Stormfur meowed, bunching his muscles to spring in pursuit. Before he could move, the dark gray apprentice reappeared at the top of the rise. He was dragging the rabbit with him. It was almost as big as he was. "Here," he meowed ungraciously as he dumped it on the ground. "That didn't take long, did it? I suppose we're allowed to stop and eat it?" "Of course," Brambleclaw replied. "Sorry, Crowpaw. I'd forgotten how fast WindClan cats can be. This moorland must feel like home to you." Crowpaw acknowledged the apology with a curt nod, as well as all 6 cats crowded around the fresh kill. Stormfur stopped short when he noticed a glow of admiration in Feathertail's eyes. Surely his sister couldn't be interested in Crowpaw. All he ever did was argue and push himself forward as if he were already a warrior. A cat from another clan, and an apprentice at that, had no right to start patting after Feathertail. And whatever did Feathertail see in him? Didn't she know the problems that this sort of thing could cause? Hadn't she learned from their own parents? Then Stormfur's gaze slid across to Squirrelpaw. Had he any right to criticize Feathertail when he liked Squirrelpaw so much? But then, he told himself, any cat would like the brave, intelligent ThunderClan apprentice, and he knew better than to start something with a cat from another clan when they couldn't possibly have a future together. Stormfur sighed and began gulping his share of the rabbit. He hoped he was imagining things. After all, any cat might admire Crowpaw's speed in catching them prey when they were all hungry. Surely that was all Feathertail was feeling. While the cats ate, Midnight waited a few paces away. Stormfur saw her tearing at the moorland grass with her strong, blunt claws, snuffling up the grubs and beetles she disturbed. Her eyes were screwed up, as if she found it hard to search for food in the strong sunlight. But she said nothing, and as soon as the cats had eaten all they could of Crowpaw's prey, she set off once more toward the rising sun. Even with Midnight to lead them by the most direct route, it was sun-high by the time they reached the crest of a gentle hill and saw the edge of the woods in front of them. The shade underneath the trees looked as inviting as running water to Stormfur after traveling through the heat of an unprotected moorland. For one brief moment he let himself imagine an afternoon of hunting, then settling down, full-fed, for a sleep under the arcing fronds of bracken, but he knew there was no chance of that. As they drew closer to the woods, he spotted what looked like a heap of mottled brown fur in the long grass underneath a bush. His tail twitched in rueful recognition at the sight of the elderly tabby who had guided them, and nearly lost them forever, in the two-leg place. "Hey, Purdy," Brambleclaw called. "We're back." A large round head emerged from the bundle of fur. whiskers twitching and eyes blinking in confusion that gradually turned to welcome. The old cat scrambled to his paws and took a couple of paces toward them, shaking bits of dead leaf from his untidy pelt. Right, StarClan. Right, StarClan, he exclaimed. I never reckoned I'd see you again. Suddenly he broke off, but his eyes fixed on something over Stormfur's shoulder. Don't move a whisker, he hissed. There's a badger behind you. Just let me deal with it. I know a few fighting moves that. It's okay, Purdy, Stormfur interrupted, while Squirrelpaw's tail curled up with amusement. This is Midnight. She's a friend. The old tabby stared at Stormfur, his jaws gaping in astonishment. A friend? You don't make friends with a badger, young fella. You can't trust him a single mouth link. Stormfur gave Midnight an anxious look, wondering if the badger was offended by Purdy's words. To his relief, she looked as amused as Squirrelpaw, her tiny black eyes gleaming. Come and meet Purdy, Stormfur mewed to her. He guided us through Two Lake Place. Midnight plodded forward until she stood in front of the old tabby Tom. Unconvinced, Purdy crouched down with his neck fur bristling and his lips drawn back in a snarl to reveal snaggly teeth. Stormfur felt a twinge of admiration for his courage, even though the badger could have flattened him with one swat of her powerful front paws. Here is not fight, Midnight assured him. Friend of my friends is my friend also. Much of you, they have told me. Purdy's ears twitched. Can't say I'm pleased to meet you, he muttered, but I suppose you must be all right if they say so. Backing away, he turned to Brambleclaw. Why are we hanging around here? He demanded. There are upwalkers and dogs all over the place. Say goodbye and let's be on our way. Hang on, Squirrelpaw protested loudly to Brambleclaw. You said we could hunt. We can, he mewed. He paused to taste the air. Stormfur did the same, and was relieved to find that although he could distinguish several different dog scents, they were stale. He guessed that Purdy was using the danger of dogs as an excuse to get away from Midnight. Okay, Brambleclaw went on. Let's split up and hunt quickly. We'll meet in that place where they camped last time. Tawnypelt, do you want to go straight there? The ShadowClan warrior's eyes flashed as she replied. No, I can hunt as well as any of you. Before any of the cats could respond, Midnight padded up to her and gave her a gentle nudge. Foolish warrior, she rumbled. Rest while able. Show me camping place. I will stay while sun is high. Go home in dark. Tawnypelt shrugged. Okay, Midnight. She headed farther into the woods, following the stream to the hollow where the cats had rested on their outward journey. The air was cooler in the dappled shade of the trees. Stormfur began to relax, feeling safer here than on the open moorland, though the chattering stream, too shallow for fish, was no substitute for the river he loved. A pang of loss stabbed through him at the thought of that. Even if he saw the river again, it would not be for long. Midnight had told them that the clans would have to leave the forest as soon as the 6 cats returned. A rustle in the undergrowth reminded him of how hungry he was. It would be good to go off for a while and hunt with Feathertail, just as they did at home. But when he swung around to speak to his sister, he saw that Crowpaw was saying something in her ear. Do you want to hunt with me? The apprentice muttered, sounding half grudging, half embarrassed. We'd do better together. That would be great, Feathertail's eyes shone. Then she spotted Stormfur and looked even more embarrassed than the WindClan cat. Why don't we all hunt together? Crowpaw looked away, and Stormfur felt the hairs on his neck begin to prickle. What right did the apprentice have to invite Feathertail to be his hunting partner? Oh, I'm fine on my own, Stormfur retorted, spinning around and plunging into the undergrowth, trying to pretend he hadn't seen the hurt in his sister's blue eyes. But once he slipped beneath the lowest branches of the bushes in his irritation, it faded quickly. His ears pricked up, and all his senses were alert in the hunt for prey. Before long, he spotted a mouse scrabbling along among fallen leaves and dispatched it with one swift blow. Satisfied, he scraped earth over the little brown body until he was ready to collect it, and looked around for more. Soon he added a squirrel and another mouse to his hoard, which as much as he could carry, and set off for the meeting place. On the way, he began to wonder how Feathertail was getting along, asking himself if he should have stayed with her after all. He was not one of StarClan's chosen cats, he had come on this mission especially to look after his sister. He had been wrong to abandon her in this strange place, just because Crowpaw had annoyed him. What would he do if something happened to her? When he reached the camping place, he saw Tawny Pelt stretched out in the shade of a hawthorn bush, her tortoiseshell fur hardly visible in the dappled sunlight. Midnight was beside her, dozing, and there was more chewed-up burdock root laid on Tawny Pelt's injured shoulder. The badger must have found some growing by the stream. Bramclaw was perched above Tawny Pelt on a steeply arching tree root, obviously keeping watch, while Feathertail and Crowpaw shared a squirrel just below. As Stormfur dropped his catch on the small pile of fresh kill in the center of the hollow, Squirrelpaw appeared at the top of the slope, dragging a rabbit, and Purdy followed with a couple of mice in his jaws. "Good, we're all here," meowed Brambleclaw. "Let's eat and get moving." He leapt down into the hollow and chose a starling from the pile. Stormfur took one of his mice over to Feathertail, settling down next to her on the opposite side from Crowpaw. "Good hunting?" he asked. Feathertail blinked at him. "Brilliant, thanks. There's so much prey here. It's a pity we can't stay longer." Stormfur was tempted to agree, but he knew that the danger to their home was too desperate for them to delay. He began to devour his mouse in famished gulps, his paws already itching for the next stage of their journey. He had swallowed the last of the fresh kill and was beginning to groom his thick gray pelt when he heard a low snarling behind him. He saw Brambleclaw raise his head, alarm flaring in his yellow eyes. Stormfur whipped around to see what had spooked the ThunderClan warrior. A familiar smell hit his scent glands as a heartbeat before two slender tawny shapes emerged from the bracken beside the stream. Foxes. Chapter 2. Leafpaw wrinkled her nose at the foul scent and tried not to hiss in disgust. Shaking her head, she parted Sorreltail's tortoiseshell fur with one paw and dabbed the wad of bile-soaked moss on the tick clinging to her shoulder. Sorreltail wriggled as she felt the bile soak through her fur. "That's better," she meowed. "Has it gone yet?" Leafpaw opened her mouth and dropped the twig that held the moss. "Give it time." "There's only one good thing about ticks," Sorreltail mewed. "They hate mouse bile just as much as we do." Springing to her paws, she gave herself a vigorous shake and flicked the tick off her shoulder. "There. Thanks, Leafpaw." A breeze rustled through the trees that surrounded the medicine cat's den. A few leaves drifted down. There was a chill in the morning air that warned Leafpaw of how few moons there were before Leafbear. This time there would be more than the cold and shortage of prey to face. Leafpaw closed her eyes and shuddered as she remembered what she had seen the day before on patrol with her father, Firestar. The biggest monster the cats had ever seen had been forging a dreadful path through the forest, scoring deep ruts into the earth and tearing up trees up by their roots. The huge shiny monster had rolled inexorably through the bracken, roaring and belching smoke while the cats scattered helplessly before it. For the first time, Leafpaw began to understand the danger to the forest, which had been prophesied twice now, once in Bramleclaw's dream that had sent him on the journey with Squirrelpaw, and once in Cinderpelt's vision of fire and tiger. The doom that had been foretold was coming upon the forest, and Leafpaw did not know what any cat could do to stop it. "Are you okay, Leafpaw?" meowed Sorreltail. Leafpaw blinked. The vision of smoke, splintered trees, and shrieking cats faded away, to be replaced by soft green ferns in the smooth gray rock where Cinderpelt made her den. She was safe. ThunderClan was still here, but for how long? "Yes, I'm fine," she replied. Firestar had ordered the patrol to keep quiet about what they had seen until he had decided how to break the news to the clan. "I've got to go and wash this mouse bile off my paws." "I'll come with you," Sorreltail offered. "Then we can go along the ravine and pick up some fresh kill." Leafpaw led the way into the main clearing. Whitepaw and Truepaw were scuffling outside the apprentice's den in the warm shafts of early morning sunlight, while Ferncloud's 3 kits watched them with huge admiring eyes. Their mother sat at the entrance to the nursery, washing herself while keeping one eye on her litter. The dawn patrol, Dustpelt, Mousefur, and Spiderpaw, were just pushing their way into the clearing through the gorse tunnel, Dustpelt's eyes narrowing with pleasure as he caught sight of Ferncloud and his kits. Leafpaw gazed at the busy, peaceful camp and could hardly keep back a wail of despair. As soon as the apprentices spotted Leafpaw, they stopped their practice fight and stared at her, and then started whispering urgently together. Even the cats in the returning patrol gave her an uneasy look as they padded over to the fresh kill pile. Leafpaw knew that rumors about yesterday's patrol were starting to fly around camp. At daybreak, Firestar had called his deputy, Graystripe, Leafpaw's mother, Sandstorm, and Cinderpelt into a meeting in his den, and every cat had begun to suspect that something unusual had happened the day before. Before she and Sorreltail could reach the gorse tunnel, Firestar appeared from his den at the foot of the high rock. Graystripe and Sandstorm followed him out into the clearing, with Cinderpelt limping after them. Firestar leapt to the top of the rock, leaving the other 3 cats to find comfortable places to sit at its base. In the slanting leaf-fall sun, his flame-colored pelt blazed like the fire that gave him his name. "Let all those cats old enough to catch their own prey join here beneath the high rock for a clan meeting," he called. Leafpaw felt her belly lurch as Sorreltail nudged her gently toward the front of the gathering cats. "You know what he's going to say, don't you?" the tortoiseshell warrior murmured. Leafpaw nodded bleakly. "I knew something weird happened yesterday," Sorreltail went on. "You all came back looking as if the whole of ShadowClan were clawing at your tails." "I wish it were just that," Leafpaw muttered. "Cats of ThunderClan," Firestar began, then paused to take a deep breath. I don't know if any clan leader has ever had to take his clan into the darkness that I see ahead." His voice faltered, and his eyes met Sandstorm's, seeming to draw strength from the she-cat's steady gaze. "Some time ago, Ravenpaw warned me about more two-leg activity on the Thunderpath. Back then, I didn't think it was important, and there was nothing we could do anyway because that is not our territory. But yesterday..." Tense silence had fallen in the clearing. Firestar did not often sound so serious. Leafpaw could see how reluctant he was to go on, how he had to force himself to speak. "My patrol was not far from Snake Rocks when we saw a 2-legged monster leave the Thunderpath. It tore into the earth and pushed trees over. "But that's ridiculous," Sitfur interrupted. "Monsters never leave the Thunderpath." "This isn't another of his dreams, is it?" Dustpelt's question was too low for Firestar to hear, though. Leafpaw caught the muttered words. "A tough bit of fresh kill too late at night?" "Shut up and listen!" Cloudtail, Firestar's kin, glared at Dustpelt. "I saw it too," Graystripe confirmed from his place at the foot of the rock. Dead silence followed his words. Leafpaw watched the cats glance at one another with uncertainty and fear in their eyes. Sorreltail turned to Leafpaw. Is that really what you saw?" Leafpaw nodded. "You can't imagine what it was like." "What does Cinderpelt have to say?" Speckletail called from where she sat among the elders. "StarClan shown you anything?" Medicine Cat rose to her paws and faced the clan, her blue eyes steady. Of all the cats, even Firestar, she seemed the calmest. Before she replied, she looked up to meet Firestar's gaze. Leafpaw could almost see flashing between them the memory of the prophecy of fire and tiger that Cinderpelt had seen in a clump of blazing bracken. She wondered how much they had decided to tell the clan in the meeting that had just ended. Then Firestar nodded, as if he was giving Cinderpelt permission to speak. She acknowledged his signal with a brief dip of her head. "The signs from StarClan are not clear," she admitted. "I see a time of great danger and change for the forest. A terrible doom hangs over all of us." Then you have had warnings about this. Why haven't you told us before?" Mousefur challenged with a lash of her tail. "Don't be mouse-brained," Cloudtail growled. "What good would it have done? What could we do? Leave the forest? And go where? Wandering around in strange country with Leaf Bear coming on? You might fancy that, Mousefur, but I don't. "If you ask me, Bramaclaw and Squirrelpaw had the right idea," Sitfur muttered to his brother Rainwhisker, getting out when they did. Leafpaw wanted to leap to the missing cat's defense, but she made herself sit still and keep quiet. She was the only cat in the clan who knew that Squirrelpaw and Bramaclaw had left on a mission from StarClan to try and save the forest from this terrible danger. Stormfur and Feathertail, Graystripe's RiverClan children, had gone with them, and cats from WindClan and ShadowClan too. However much their clanmates missed them, Leafpaw knew it was for the good of all the clans that they had gone. Yet the danger here now Yet the danger was here now, she thought, apprehension gripping her belly, and the missing cats had not returned. Did that mean they had failed? Did it mean StarClan had failed, in spite of the warnings they had sent? Cinderpelt's calm gaze rested on the hushed and waiting clan. There will be a great danger, she repeated, but I do not believe that ThunderClan will be destroyed. The clan cats looked at one another, bewildered and afraid. The silence seemed to stretch out for 1,000 heartbeats, until it was broken by a single eerie wail rising from the group of elders. As if that were a signal, more yells and cries of terror broke out. Faced with the terror of approaching monsters, few of the clan could believe Cinderpelt's reassurances. Ferncloud swept her tail protectively around her 3 kits, drawing them into the shelter of her flecked gray fur. "What are we going to do?" she cried. Sorry, I have my own cat at my feet. Dustbelt got up and pressed his nose comfortingly to her side. "We'll do something," he promised. "We'll show the Two Legs this is our place." "And how do you propose we do that?" Mousefur asked, her voice harsh. "When have Two Legs ever cared about us? They do what they want." "Their monsters will frighten all the prey," Ashfur added. "We already know the forest is emptier than it's ever been, and Leaf Bear is coming. What are we going to eat?" More terrified caterwauling broke out, and several heartbeats went by before Firestar could make himself heard again. "We can't decide what to do until we know more," he meowed, when the noise had died into apprehensive muttering. "What happened yesterday was near Snake Rocks, well away from here. It's possible that the Two Legs won't come any farther." "Then why would StarClan send any warnings at all?" Thornclaw asked. "We've got to face it, Firestar. We can't pretend this isn't happening." "I'll arrange extra patrols," Firestar assured him, "and I'm going to try speaking to ShadowClan. This was near their border, and they may have had trouble too." "You can't believe anything ShadowClan tells you," Cloudtail growled. "They wouldn't give you a mouse tail if you were starving." "Maybe not," Firestar replied, "but if the Two Legs have invaded their territory, they might be prepared to talk if it meant we could help one another." "And hedgehogs might fly," Cloudtail grunted. He turned away from Firestar and muttered something into the ear of his mate, Brightheart, who pushed her nose into his fur as if she were reassuring him. "Everyone must keep alert," Firestar continued. "If you see anything unusual, I want to know. We survived the flood and the fire, and we survived Tigerstar's dog pack and the threat from Scourge and BloodClan. We will survive this too." He leapt down from the rock to show that the meeting was at an end. Immediately, the cats in the clearing broke into anxious little knots, discussing what they had just heard. Firestar and Cinderpelt spoke briefly together, and then Cinderpelt padded over to Leafpaw. "Firestar is going to see ShadowClan right away," the medicine cat announced. "He wants you to come too." Mingled with excitement and apprehension, clawed at Leafpaw. "Why me?" "He wants both medicine cats with him. He thinks that if we're there, Blackstar will realize that ThunderClan isn't looking for a fight." Cinderpelt's blue eyes flashed. "All the same, Leafpaw, I hope you've practiced your fighting moves recently." Leafpaw swallowed. "Yes, Cinderpelt." "Good." With a wave of her tail, she led the way to where Firestar was waiting at the entrance to the gorse tunnel. Graystripe and Brackenfur were with him. "Let's go," meowed Firestar, "and remember, I don't want any trouble. We're only going to talk." Graystripe snorted. "Try telling that to ShadowClan. If a patrol catches us on their territory, they'll claw us as soon as they see us." "Let's hope not," Firestar replied with feeling. "If the Two Legs are threatening both our clans, we can't afford to waste our strength in fighting one another." Graystripe still looked doubtful, but he said nothing more as Firestar led them up the ravine toward the ShadowClan border. Leafpaw kept her ears pricked for the unusual sounds, and every hair on her pelt stood on end. The forest that had been safe for as long as she could remember was suddenly a frightening place, invaded by the Two Legs and their monsters. Firestar led his patrol directly toward Snake Rocks, and soon Leafpaw realized that he was heading for the spot where the monster had left the Thunderpath. Before they came in sight of it, she picked up the reek of the monster and the rich earthy smell of torn ground. When she came to the top of the slope above the thunder path, she stopped and peered through a clump of bracken. Just below her, a swath of churned-up grass stretched as far as the thunder path. Trees lay on the ground, their roots tangling in the air. Everything was silent. Leafpaw couldn't hear a single bird or the scuffling of prey in the grass. But the monster had gone, and when she opened her jaws to drink in the air, the scent of two legs was stale. Even the reek of the monster was beginning to fade. "They haven't been here today," Graystripe meowed. "Perhaps they've finished whatever they were doing." "I wouldn't count on it," Firestar replied tersely. "This is terrible," Brackenfur sounded stunned. He had not been on the original patrol. "Why are they destroying the forest, Firestar?" The tip of Firestar's tail twitched back and forth. "Why do two legs do anything? If we knew that, our lives would be a lot easier." Skirting the edge of the damaged area, he led the way along the thunder path. Leafpaw's belly lurched as she saw that more trees had been felled in ShadowClan's territory, and even more ground had been churned up. Every one of the ThunderClan cats stopped to stare across the hard, black surface. Brackenfur dropped into a crouch as if he were about to spring into attack, but there was no enemy to fight. "Look at that!" Graystripe's voice shook with horror. "You were right, Firestar. ShadowClan is having exactly the same trouble." "Then, that should make it easier to talk to Blackstar." Firestar was trying to sound confident, but his ears were laid flat against his head. Cinderpelt gave the scarred area a long look before turning away, shaking her head. Though she said nothing, her blue eyes were filled with dread and confusion. The monster roared by on the thunder path, smaller than the tree-eating one, but still deafeningly noisy. Leafpaw flinched, half expecting it to veer into the forest where they were standing, but it stayed on the thunder path and growled away until it vanished among the trees. Another monster followed it, then a third raced along in the opposite direction. "I don't want to cross here," Graystripe muttered, blinking grit out of his eyes. Firestar nodded. We'll cross the stream by 4 trees and go through the tunnel," he decided, "and just hope we don't meet any ShadowClan warriors on this side of the thunder path." When they reached the stream, Firestar crossed in a couple of bounds by a stepping stone in the middle. Leafpaw kept an eye on her mentor, making sure that Cinderpelt crossed safely in spite of the old injury to her leg from a thunder accident seasons before. Then she followed her across as Firestar climbed the opposite bank. A light breeze was blowing toward them, carrying the rank scent of ShadowClan. At the border, Firestar and Graystripe renewed the scent markings, before Firestar led the way toward the tunnel under the thunder path. To Leafpaw's relief, there was no sign of ShadowClan cats in this section of their territory. The elders had told her many stories about the clan's dark-hearted history, from the murdered Broken Star, who had killed his own father, to treacherous Tiger Star, who had made himself ShadowClan leader when he was exiled from ThunderClan. The present leader, Blackstar, hadn't caused any trouble so far, but Leafpaw knew that Firestar didn't really trust him. As she followed him into the tunnel, she admired him even more for his courage in trying to make allies of his old enemies for the sake of the forest. Leafpaw shivered as she plunged into the gloomy silence beneath the thunder path, broken only by the drip of water and the splashing of their paws in the mud that covered the bottom of the tunnel. On the ShadowClan side, the harsh scent was stronger than ever. The ground under Leafpaw's paws was dank and marshy, covered with coarse, scrubby grass. Here and there were pools fringed with reeds. There were few tall trees, unlike those that sheltered the ThunderClan camp. It felt like another world. "The ShadowClan camp is this way," Firestar meowed, heading for a clump of bushes. Leafpaw, Cinderpelt, keep close to me. Graystripe and Brackenfur, spread out and keep watch. And remember that we're not looking for trouble. Leafpaw padded behind Firestar as he headed deeper into ShadowClan territory. She hated the way her paws sank into mud at every step. She kept wanting to stop to flick away the moisture. It was hard to imagine ShadowClan cats putting up with it every day of their lives. Surely they would have grown webbed paws by now. Her muscles began to ache from the strain of keeping alert, when Brackenfur called out as she jumped nervously and then hoped that no cat had noticed. Firestar, come look at this. Brackenfur pointed with his tail to a thin piece of wood, too smooth and regular to be the branch of a tree, standing upright in the ground about the height of a cat. Firestar patted over to and sniffed at it suspiciously. It reeks of 2 legs, he reported. There's another over there, Leafpaw called, spotting a matching stick a few fox lengths far away. And another, all in a line. What are they? Voice died away. As she bounded toward the next piece of wood, the bushes in front of her rustled, and 3 cats stepped out into the open. She quickly recognized Russet Fur, the dark ginger she-cat, who was ShadowClan's deputy. The other warriors, a dark gray Tom and a lean tabby with a torn ear, were strangers to her. Leafpaw swallowed nervously. Firestar was already bounding up to her. Greetings, Russet Fur, he meowed. You're trespassing on our territory, snarled the ShadowClan deputy. With a flick of her tail, she summoned her warriors forward. Leafpaw barely had time to dodge as the dark gray Tom sprang at her. She felt claws rake down her side as she rolled away and scrambled to her paws, trying to remember her fighting moves. She caught a glimpse of Cinderpelt and Russet Fur stalking around each other. A tail length away, Graystripe had the tabby pinned down, while Brackenfur and the other Tom writhed together in a screeching bundle of gray and ginger fur. For a moment, she could not see Firestar. Glancing around wildly, she saw that he had leapt up onto one of the fallen tree trunks. His voice rose in a yell above the hissing and spitting. Stop! That's where we're going to pause for tonight. A short little return to everything. So I hope you enjoyed listening, and I hope you have a good evening and a good night. Till next time, my friends.